Hi everyone. So today's demonstration, I'm going to be demonstrating an improvement or a new feature that's also available in the latest update to our Simple GIS Client product, and that is the version 13.1 update. And it's an improvement we've made to the Data Explorer. This was a tool that was actually available in previous versions, but it would display a dialog box on the right hand side of your map, and you could visualize specific attribute data for a given layer using charts or graphs. In the 13.1 release, we've made some additional improvements in that we've added this data panel that you can use to display this information, and it will actually, you can add more than one layer. Unlike the original Data Explorer, you could only do a layer at a time. In this case, as you can see, I've added a couple of layers in here. I have the county population and the state boundaries. In addition, in the previous version, all you had available from a graphing or charting standpoint is a bar graph, and now we've also added the ability to do a pie graph and aggregate the data in the layer itself. And so I'll go through how this was actually set up in this particular map project. But again, this just gives you another way to visualize your data. So I have this county layer loaded that has demographic population data, which I'm actually graphing here next to the side. And you see right now that my display results are for all the visible features in the current map view. And so if I was to pan around on the map, obviously then you would see this chart update with the latest data. In addition to that, of course, you can come here, and if you have an interest in any one of these particular points, you simply can click on this bar graph to have it flash on the map where that particular feature is located at. And so, as I said, you can add multiple layers to this data panel, and then you can scroll down as you add these layers. And so in this case, I'm also displaying for the state boundaries layer, I have a couple of fields. One field gives the total acreage in for the land coverage, and then the other field gives the total area coverage for the water in this particular state boundaries. And then what this pie graph is doing is aggregating that data for the states that's visible in my current map and giving you as a percentage, because I've normalized the data in my setup on this, and we'll go over that in a minute. But it's giving you the percentage of the area in land versus area in water cover. So in this particular area that I'm viewing on my map right here for the states that's visible, 95% of the land area is in land, and 5% is involves water coverage. So as I promised, I'll go through real quick and show you how I set this up. So to begin with, if you was to start a new project, and again, I'm going to use this this project template that I have here for the U.S. boundaries, so I'll just use that for now. And this particular project template, it has 3 shapefiles that it loads in, and I have zip code, areas, county boundaries, and state boundaries. But to set up your data panel, you configure it through your View Properties dialog. And so underneath the View pull-down menu on your Map Data View document, if you click on that, you'll see the very first menu option is called Set View Properties. And if you was to click on that, you would get the View Properties dialog box. And as this dialog box pops up, you'll notice a set of tabs at the top. And the tab that controls the data panel is this last tab called Data Explorer Configuration. And so you can click on this, and what this gives you is, first of all, the list box along the left-hand side lists all the available layers in your current map data view document. So this would be all layers that has associated attribute data with it. And then any layers that's already been configured to display or graph their data on the data panel would show up under the Data Explorer Layers list box here. So I'm going to show you one more thing is I'm going to go ahead and cancel this dialog box. You can always toggle the visibility of your data panel. If you'll notice in the lower right hand corner of your map data view document, you should now see a new button in this lower right hand corner, and right now if I position my mouse over it, it says show data panel. So this is actually the tool button that you can use to toggle the visibility of the data panel. Now the way it behaves is if I was to click on this now, since I have not configured any layers to be appear on the data panel, if I click on this to toggle the visibility and show the data panel, I'm going to get a message box just asking me whether I want to go ahead and configure the data panel now. It detected that I have not yet configured any layers to show up on it. So at this point in time, I would get this message box, and I can either select yes if I want to go ahead and configure it, or no, and I'll just simply dismiss, but it also will not toggle the visibility or show the data panel because there's nothing to show on it. So if I was to click yes, then it's going to bring the View Properties dialog box up, the same one that we were just looking at that we initiated from the View pull-down menu. It's going to bring that up, and it's going to go ahead and bring us to the Data Explorer Configuration tab so that we can configure the layers that we want to see on our data panel. So I'll just select a couple here, and let's say I'll select the state boundaries, for instance. And if I was to select this layer to add it to my Data Explorer layers, I simply select it from the Available Layers list box. And then I can click on this button here that has the double arrows pointing to the right. If I was to click on that, I get a new dialog box that allows me to configure the data that I want to see on the data panel from this layer. The very first edit box at the top allows me to enter in a title, and this title would appear over my graph or chart that I'm going to map. And so I'm just going to call this land area by state. At this point in time, I can select the type of chart, whether it's a bar chart or a pie graph. In this case, it's grayed out because pie graphs I can only use if I have more than one data points that I'm graphing. So right now I haven't configured any data series that I want to graph, and therefore this is grayed out. If there's a unique field in my layer that uniquely identifies each feature, I can select that field for it to label on my chart or my graph. And so in this case, I'm going to use the ST-USPS field I have in this state boundaries layer, which is simply the state abbreviation. I can also choose initially how I want to display data in my graph. Do I want to only view visible features in my current map view extent? Do I only want to view select features only, or do I want to view all features in the layer? And so in this case, I'm going to use visible features only. And now I can select my field mapping. So these are the available fields. So this would list any numeric fields because obviously I can't chart or graph non-numeric fields. So the available fields would list any numeric fields that is in my current layer that I'm configuring. And so I have this A land, which represents the coverage of the land area, and then I have A water, which represents the coverage of the water area. So to actually add a field to my plot, I simply select the field underneath the available fields, and then I use this button again. It's the button, and it has two arrows pointing to the right to move it to my plot fields. And so as I select a field, click this button, you'll see that it'll add a row under my plot fields, and then it has the field name, which I can't edit. I can edit the label if I so choose. So I could double click on the label and then just simply type in a new label if I wanted a more descriptive label rather than just the field name. I can also control the color of the data series in my graph by simply double-clicking on the color. I get this new color selection dialog box, and I can choose a new color if I so choose, and click apply. Now if I wanted to add another field, I'm going to select the A water, use the button with the double arrows, and now it would add a new row into my plot fields. Again, I'm going to change the label, make it a little more descriptive, and then I'm also going to modify the color. At this point in time, I could choose whether I want to normalize the values. Again, if I'm doing a bar chart and I choose to normalize, I got to have at least 2 fields or more that I'm plotting. And what it would do for the bar chart is for each feature, it would normalize this land area, water area by the total area for that particular feature. And so what it would do, it would sum up the total, the raw values of all of these fields that I'm plotting, and then divide the individual raw value by that total value to normalize it to the total. If I'm doing a pie chart, so as you can see, my chart type is now enabled since I have at least 2 different data series chosen that I'm plotting. If I was to select a pie graph, the way the pie graph works is it would sum up or aggregate the total for all the features in your particular layer. So a bar graph would do it feature by feature and show you the individual values feature by feature. A pie graph aggregates all the values for the features depending upon the display type that you've selected. If you have visible features only, it would take all states that are in the current map view extent that you're viewing, sum up these values, the total for all the features that are visible. And that's what would be graphed for a pie chart. For a bar chart, it would just take each state that's visible and give the individual land area and water area for each state. You can also choose if you want to show table values. And so this would just display a table grid beneath the chart that would list these values. And so if I was to click apply, it now adds that to my Data Explorer layer. And of course, I could add additional layers if I wanted to by simply clicking them and moving them over. I can also edit the settings for this particular layer by simply double-clicking on it underneath the Data Explorer layers list box. So I was to double-click on this layer. I see that I get this property dialog box that reappears, and I can change these settings if I so choose. If I needed to remove a layer from the Data Explorer layers, I just simply select it by clicking on it under Data Explorer layers, and then click on this button with the 2 arrows pointing to the left. Once I'm done, I click apply. At this point in time, it enables the data panel, makes it visible, and then displays your graph. And so as you see, again, we're using a bar chart. And it is, in this case, all the visible states, which zoomed out at such an extent that all the states are visible. And so it has plotted all of these various land areas and water areas for these different states. And here's the table of values below. And I can scroll through that and see the individual values for each state. Again, I can click on a particular bar graph to flash that particular feature on my map. That represents this bar graph. And likewise, I can double click on a row in the table and have it flash that particular feature on the map as well. Now, if you was to change your display results type to selected, when I do this, of course, nothing is mapped because I have no features selected. But now if I was to use my select features tool, and come to my state boundaries, make that my active layer, and then come here and just select several states, you would see that it would map those based upon that selection set. Likewise, if I was to choose all features, then it would display the bars for all the features. One thing to note, for performance and for practicality purposes, if the number of features that it's trying to graph is more than 500, it'll limit to only display the first 500 features. So as you can see, you just run out of room with the graph. So if you had more than that, you really couldn't make heads or tails of it much anyway. So it just simply, if you do happen to have more than 500 features that's either visible or selected, or if you'd selected all features and your shapefile or your layer contains more than 500 features, it would only graph the first 500. One thing you can do is use this selection in conjunction with the quick search toolbar. So for instance, if I change this to selected, and let's say I configure my quick search, I'm going to click on my quick search since I haven't configured it for this map document yet. Rather than going to the view properties menu, which I certainly could, I could just simply click in quick search, and then it would tell me that it's not been configured for this map. Do I want to configure now? And if I select yes, it's going to take me to the view properties dialog box with the quick search configuration. And so if I wanted to search on state boundaries, and let's say I wanted to search by either state abbreviation or maybe the full state name, and click apply and apply to configure my quick search. So what that would allow you to do, if I was to come in here and I was to type in to select a particular state, zoom to that state, and as I do so, you notice that because my selection set just changed based upon this quick search, it's plotting these values for that particular state that it's selected. So I could use this in conjunction with the quick search to allow a way to quickly locate features and display some key information on the attribute data about that feature, if I so choose. So again, and so that's how you set up the data panel. Of course, you can hide this by simply clicking on this button again to toggle the visibility of the data panel. I wanted to turn it back on. I simply click on this button again to display it again. One thing to note also is that I can use this in conjunction with the Simple GIS Collaborate plugin. Now, if I was to publish this as a portable map document, I could use this with our free Simple Map Viewer application to create dynamic and interactive presentations for other users that could be viewed using the Simple GIS Collaborate. Just publishing this as a portable map document, and then you could distribute this to other users that might be using the Simple Map Viewer application. So hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was a benefit. As always, if you have any questions, please visit the website. And that website address is simplegissoftware.com. All one word, no spaces. Thank you. Have a great day.